Now, into the ticket office of Disneyland.
Oh boy, let's do this.
Don't think the CIA is going to be trying to hack your second-gen iPod.
I didn't think so. There might have been a lot of illegal music on there. I wouldn't doubt it. But, I mean...
You were supposed to bring death to the flagships, not join them.
Google has found a new way to piss me off.
iTunes is a constant source of embarrassment.
Behind-the-scenes camera crap.
May I present to you the cat?
I am the dog. I can't do it anymore without laughing. I was going to do the whole thing.
Welcome, everybody, to the Calling All Platforms podcast. I'm your host today, Caleb, and I'm here with Landon.
Hello.
And no Wes, because that's just how we do things these days, is one person is gone.
You know, I know Wes mentioned that there were life things going on with me, and it's not entirely wrong, but part of that is that I just hate Wes now, and so we can't do the podcast together. So this is kind of a dual custody thing with Caleb. He gets Wes 1 week, he gets me 1 week, you know. It's just how it's going to go for a little while.
Oh, no. Oh, dear. I need to review this paperwork. I feel like I can't have possibly agreed to this.
Well, you know, I'm sorry you didn't read the thing that you signed.
Yes. Let this be a lesson to you, listener. When a random person shows up at your front door to serve you papers of some form, you should probably read them before you just sign them and send them off. Okay. Well, so this is the on week with Landon. So we're going to go ahead and get into the important stuff that we needed Landon's expertise here for anyways. And we're going to jump right in with the Samsung Unpacked event.
Yes.
Take it away, Landon.
Samsung, very conveniently, moving forward and closer to the beginning of the year. Every year, it's just rude. Eventually, this is going to be part of CES, and then it's just going to come out New Year's Day, and then it's going to come out at New Year's Day at 12:01 a.m. because they have to do it right at the beginning of the year because they're just rude like that. It's going to be like, oh, Happy New Year. Here's a new phone. No, please don't. Anyways, this one happens to be the Samsung Galaxy S24. There are, once again, 3 phones in this lineup, the S24, the S24 Plus, and the S24 Ultra. First off, I want to say that if you are an Android fan, specifically a Samsung Android fan, but you have always envied the iPhone for some reason, this is the phone for you, because if you look at the side of any of these phones, it looks just like the iPhone. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but that's just what these are, you know?
Yeah.
Flat backs, flat screens, finally a flat screen on the Ultra, and aluminum brushed rails on the S24 and 24 Plus. And then because Apple discovered titanium in September, this phone now has titanium as well. So benefits to Apple, you know, mining things.
And the thing that I hate about this is that Samsung doing it just after Apple did it sort of legitimizes Apple's whole like marketing push of like, we put titanium in a phone thing. Like it's this crazy new novel idea. Samsung, why you gotta be like this? Don't reinforce Apple's narrative for them.
I mean, they both do it to themselves. You know, one company does something well, the other company's going to copy them.
Yeah,
it's just the way it goes,
true.
Unfortunately. And
it's just that Samsung is always so hot on Apple's heels with it that it's like, like Apple will wait like 3 years, even if it's detrimental to all of their users, USB-C, before they copy a Samsung feature. Yeah, that was a heck of a lot longer than 3 years.
Yeah,
but Samsung is like the next month. It's all like, oh, by the way, it's the FE edition that has this thing that is exactly like the iPhone. Like, are you kidding, guys? Like, stop that.
I mean, they still don't have a notch, so I'll give them that.
Well, that's true.
But anyways, other than that, these phones, I mean, if you're looking at the back of the phone or the front of the phone for that matter, they definitely are Samsung phones. So, I mean, they still have the, lots of holes on the back of the phone with the cameras, especially in the Ultra.
Yep.
There's 5. Ugh.
It is a lot.
Anyways, let's get into the specs on these phones. We'll start with the S24 Ultra because that's the high-end one that everyone thinks they're going to want. Whether or not they need it or not, that's probably what most people are going to buy. So this phone, okay, actually all the phones have the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3, and strangely enough, this is the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 for Galaxy. I don't know what the difference is here. There probably isn't one, but they just have to brand their own stuff for reasons.
Yep.
It's got 12 gigs of RAM. Storage-wise, it starts at 256 gigs of storage and goes up to 1 terabyte of storage. So that's nice. There's a 5,000 milliamp hour battery, and I think that I can't remember if that's the same or slightly smaller, but either way, decent sized battery, 5,000 milliamp hours.
Yeah.
It is launching with Android 14, obviously, and One UI 6.1. The front camera is a 12 megapixel sensor. On the back, it's got a 200 megapixel main sensor, a 12 megapixel ultra wide, a 10 megapixel 3x telephoto, and then a 50 megapixel 5x telephoto. Now, this is where it changes a little bit because last year and in years previous, there's been a 3x telephoto and a 10x telephoto. And from what it sounds like, I don't know if Samsung said this or it's just what everyone's kind of coming to conclusions on, is that going from 3x to 10x is an awfully big jump.
Yeah.
And this 5x telephoto is a higher megapixel count, so digitally cropping to zoom into 10x is actually going to get you a better, clearer image than the previous 10x telephoto camera sensor did. So
yeah,
this is actually better in pretty much every sense of the word because you're not zooming in quite as far by default, but you're still going to get the higher quality digital zoom past that.
Yep.
So I'm okay with the quote unquote downgrade. I don't think it's a downgrade at all, but I like this.
Yeah, and I mean, let's be honest. With the optics that you can fit into the camera on the back of a smartphone, anything above 3x is kind of just a joke anyways. It's like, yes, it's partially optic, but mostly we're just doing a lot of digital zooming and cropping and stuff and using algorithms to smooth it out and make it not look like crap.
Yeah, that's true. Other specs on this phone is it has an LTPO AMOLED display that can go from 1 to 120 hertz. Once again, it's got 45 watt wired charging and 15 watt wireless charging. And strangely enough, does not have Qi 2 inside. And I'll get to probably why that is the case in a little bit. It is IP68 rated for water and dust resistance. S Pen is included and built into the phone like it has been the past couple of years. It's got a 6.8-inch display, which is large.
That's big.
Yes. And that's the main thing about this phone. And it starts at $1,300.
Oh, dear. Yeah, that's fine. Okay.
Because, titanium, it's such a new product. It only came out a few months ago.
It is.
So,
yeah, nobody has had titanium before this point.
Costs a little
exist.
Extra.
It's not like we've been building entire fetching multi-million-dollar jets out of it for decades.
Right.
Or anything
like
that.
And also don't mention that to Essential because I'm pretty sure their phone was titanium as well.
I think it was, yeah. Oh, man.
Nobody remembers Essential anyways.
That's true. The original notch display.
Yeah. All right. Now on to the S24 and S24 Plus. So the S24 Plus, the main differences here is it's a slightly smaller battery of 4,900 milliamp hours instead of 5,000. It It comes in either 256 or 512 gigs of storage. There's not a 1 terabyte option. The cameras are a little bit different. It's got a 50 megapixel main sensor, a 12 megapixel wide sensor, and a 10 megapixel 3x telephoto. Only the 3. There's not 5. That's perfectly fine. And the rails on these ones are aluminum, so it's a little cheaper.
Sucks, man.
And by a little cheaper, I mean it's $300 cheaper. It still costs $1,000 to start.
Oh my gosh.
This one does have a 6.7 inch display, so it's ever so slightly smaller. But it is also an AMOLED display that does go from 1 to 120 hertz. It does not come with that set by default. It is a 4K display, but it comes out of the box at 1080p. And I can't remember what the refresh rate is set to at default, but you can go in and change that to 4K, 120 hertz. So, honestly,
interesting.
I think this is the best bang for your buck when it comes to these 3 phones, but
yeah, probably.
It is what it is.
I don't know. Some of us don't want an almost 7-inch screen on our phones.
Well, some of you are wrong. So next up is the
do you remember was it LG, I think, that like in Japan released a tablet that had like cellular connectivity features in it way back in the day? It was like 2010, 2012, something like that. And we all made fun of them because they put a phone into a 7-inch tablet. Like, yes, the bezels were bigger back then, but every time we creep closer and closer to that 7-inch mark, I'm just like, remember when we all laughed at them for doing that? And I think it was LG, and it just goes to show LG really was thinking ahead of the times.
I mean, it's true, but at the same time, I don't think we're going to get to that point where we get to the 7-inch, because 6.8 has been pretty much the biggest you can get on a phone for a while, or 6.9. Like the Nexus 6 was a 6. No, wait. Never mind. That was just a 6-inch display. I'm thinking of something else. There was a Windows phone that was 6.9, I believe. And that was at the time when the aspect ratio was off. Like, it was fat,
wider.
And the bezels were huge, which didn't make sense on those phones. It's a lot easier to do with phones nowadays because they're taller and less bezels and whatnot. But I mean, I understand the argument against big phones, but that's just not for me. I like the big phone.
Yeah.
All right. Now on to the Galaxy S24. This one has, the downside on this one, it has only 8 gigs of RAM instead of 12. 128 gigs starting storage, which is unfortunate. And then you can upgrade to 256 gigs. There's not even a 0.5 terabyte option on this one. It has a 4,000 milliamp hour battery. It's got the same cameras as the S24 Plus, same display as the S24 Plus, so that's really nice.
That is.
And this one is a 6.2 inch display, so still too big for Caleb, but closer.
Yep. You're almost there.
Yeah.
5.8. That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, you need that Asus phone. And this one starts at $800. So for the price, this is not a horrible phone at $800. But again, I still think, even though $1,000 is a lot to spend on the phone, I think the S24 Plus is probably going to be, like I said, the best bang for your buck when it comes to these 3 phones, because the differences between it and the Ultra are not massive by any means. I mean, you get slightly less cameras, but the quality is still going to be really good when it comes to photos and video. And the display is really nice. I mean, you're not getting titanium. Whoop-de-doo. You're going to put a case on it anyways most of the time. So I think the S24 Plus is probably the best phone for most people. But I like these phones in general. It's funny, like a lot of the hands-on videos have been pretty positive so far, but a lot of people also said, like, I didn't watch the keynote on this, but some people said it was very similar to what you would see at like Google I/O, because it was a lot of talk about the software and what it can do AI wise, because there's a lot of that with the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3. That's their big thing on this chip is on-device AI, and this phone is definitely taking advantage of that. So some of the stuff that they mentioned in the keynote, and this is, from what I understand, all of this stuff can be done on all three phones because it's the same chip on all three phones. So Google, you should listen to what Samsung's doing here, because both Pixel phones have the same chip. Why are you limiting things, you jerks? Anyway,
they've been talking to Apple. That's why.
Oh, it's really unfortunate.
Don't do that.
Some of the things that I found interesting that this phone is supposed to be able to do is live translation during a phone call. So the way this works is you actually have to download the language that you want to use onto the device before you make this phone call. But it does all of this on device. It doesn't use data or whatnot, which would make sense because it would take a little longer if it was using the cloud to do this.
Oh, yeah.
But you can be talking with someone over the phone, and you could visually see what they're saying in their language and in your language, or audibly hear, like it'll have a voice come over and say what they're saying in your language. And it does this, like I said, on device, and it's really cool. And you actually have the option to only hear the translated voice. So you can make it so you don't even hear their voice when they're speaking in their language. It'll only hear the AI voice, which would be weird to me, but
yeah,
that is an option.
Huh.
Now, reviews aren't out yet as of this recording, so I haven't seen this tested yet. It'll be interesting to see how well it actually works, but if it does work as well as what Samsung thinks it should, that's pretty awesome. Yeah. I really like that. I mean, it's not going to be something that I would ever use on any sort of regular basis, but like the type of market that would use this would be business people that regularly call different countries that speak a different language. Now, most of the people that you're going to be talking to probably do speak English, or you speak their language,
That's true.
But there are those times where that is not the case. So having this would be kind of nice.
Yeah. That's interesting. Like, that's a really... Because, like, you said live translation on a phone call, and I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool. And I'm in my head picturing just on the screen it transcribing the translation as you go. But also doing the, text to voice thing in the middle of it. That is an interesting take on it, where it's essentially just intercepting whatever it is they're saying and spitting out a translation to you. And if that's not the universal translator from Star Trek, then I don't know what is.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. And the other cool thing is, the other person does not have to be on one of these phones, and they will also hear your voice translated to them.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
It's if it actually works, it's pretty awesome.
Yeah. Big caveat there. If it actually works.
Yes.
If it doesn't work, then it was an overpromised feature that doesn't actually exist.
Yes, definitely. A lot of the other stuff that is interesting has to do with photo and AI stuff. And it's interesting because a lot of this stuff is basically what is quote unquote exclusive to the Pixel phones right now. One of which is, well, this one is actually not that. So this one, on the screen, you can circle, like I think you have to hold down the home button, or hold down, if you have it in gesture mode, you hold down the little line at the bottom, like long press on it, and it'll pop up with basically what would have been Google Lens, kind of. It's not quite using that, but it's something along those lines. And you can circle something on the screen. Like normally, like you could use Google Lens and it'll just search for whatever's on your screen, and then you can do that. But this one, you can circle a specific spot on your screen. So let's say you're looking at a photo of some sort of statue. This is one example they gave. And you can just circle the statue, and then it'll do a search for that thing, for that statue.
Mm-hmm.
Or some videos I've seen is like articles of clothing. Like you could circle just the t-shirt or just the pair of pants or shoes or something someone's wearing, and it'll search for that product. And then it was all the examples I saw worked. It was pretty impressive.
Okay.
So that's kind of cool that you can search for specific things on your screen instead of just the whole screen in general, which is kind of nice. The photo stuff is using, from what I understand, Google's Gemini AI stuff to basically give you, like I said, all the same pixel photo AI features. But what's interesting about this is if you edit a photo using these things, it puts a little AI watermark on the bottom of the photo, which is actually kind of nice. So you can know that it's been edited, but you can also crop it and take that photo or that watermark out because
that's
it just
true.
puts it at the bottom. So I mean, it's kind of nice that they do that, but I mean, the examples they gave is like basically Magic Editor that's on the Pixel where you can circle yourself and move you around the photo and it automatically generates something to make it work.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of cool that that's not just now only a Pixel exclusive, but it makes sense that they can do that with this chip that they've got in there and whatnot. And like I said, it's using Google's Gemini, so it's basically the same thing.
Yes.
So that's nice. One also really interesting thing that they said they can do is they can create slow-mo videos using AI out of a regular video.
Yeah.
Which
I thought that was kind of interesting.
I really want to see this in action because it's basically using AI to create frames that weren't there.
Yep.
And I want to see how that actually works. I don't think it will be great.
No,
but
I
I'm
feel like
curious.
this is going to be like conceptually it's fine, but even in video games, we have issues with this.
Yeah.
And that's like, so that's a part of NVIDIA's DLSS suite now is frame generation, where it will render the image or the game at 30 frames per second and will then generate intermediary frames between those to artificially boost it to 60 or 90 FPS. Which is like, it's the same technology, except they're running it off of an extremely powerful GPU that was built for AI interpretation. And Samsung is basically saying, hey, we've got a Qualcomm ARM chip that can do the same thing. Now, I guess maybe it's not real time. So, like, that's where, like, you tell it to process a video and it will take some time to generate all of the intermediary frames. But even in NVIDIA's implementation, it's not perfect. There's some weird smearing artifacts and stuff like that. And you're looking at those frames at 60 or 90 frames per second, not 30 frames per second. Like, this will be taking a 30 FPS video, making it into a 90 FPS video, and then playing it for you at 30 FPS. That's what slow-mo video is. So you'll be able to really kind of get in there and look at all of those intermediary AI generated frames and see where it randomly spawned extra fingers on the people and stuff like that. So yeah, I want to see that. Like not Samsung's demos. I want to see it.
Yes, I am definitely curious to see, review videos testing this feature out because, I mean, even if it's like remotely okay, it's kind of cool, but it just depends. Like, I'm not expecting it to be anywhere near as good a quality as if you actually recorded in slow motion because it's not. It can't
exactly.
But if it's even half as good as what that would be, it's kind of a cool feature. I don't know how often you would use it, but it could be kind of fun.
Yeah, it's hard to say.
one thing that they are doing now, because Google is doing this, is 7 years of software updates. So they're saying through
Right.
or into 2031. They didn't give as far as I know, an official date other than into 2031, because they can say that because that would be technically 7 years. So
Yep.
doesn't necessarily mean they're going to go through 2031, but into 2031. So, I mean, that's nice. I'll take it. Anytime we can get more software updates, especially the security updates, that's pretty nice. All right, now I'm going to go back to the part where they did not include Qi 2 in this. And
Right.
the reasoning why I think they didn't has everything to do with just the Ultra. And they couldn't put Qi 2 in the regular, like the S24 or the S24 Plus, and not have it in the Ultra because obvious, you know.
That's
but
fair.
Apparently, and this is apparently the issue, like if you have a MagSafe case with the Ultra phone, the S Pen doesn't play nice with where the magnets are on the phone, which is interesting. Like it kind of struggles when you go on the screen over top of where the magnet array is in the case. It struggles. So that is probably why they didn't use the Qi 2 standard in this phone.
Yeah.
Because they have to have the S Pen because, you know, the 5 people that use it have to have it.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, no, that is interesting. I guess that makes sense depending on the technology that they're using for the S Pen. Like, I'm trying to, would the Apple Pencil have that same limitation? I don't think so, but they are using a different implementation of the technology between those two devices. Like, they're not the same. So,
but I mean, like right now, there's no anything that the Apple Pencil can work on does not have MagSafe. So,
it doesn't have MagSafe, but the iPads do have redonkulously powerful magnets along both edges of the screen to make the Smart Folio cases work properly. And so,
but that's not like under the display anywhere.
I mean, it is a little bit under the display, like just the edges.
Right.
And when you're drawing on those screens or writing on those screens, you don't run into any interference issues around those edges, around those magnets. So I don't think, but you know, we've known for years that the S Pen and the Apple Pencil are not using the same methodology for reading its position on the display. The S Pen does it differently, and that actually makes sense that this is something that they might run into. Is magnetic interference.
But yeah,
that makes
the only
sense.
thing I can see why they wouldn't include it in this line of phones, because for something like I still don't fully understand why the S Pen is still a thing. There must be enough people that use it to justify it, I guess. I don't know.
I guess.
But yeah, so that's my guess as to why they did not have Qi 2 MagSafe in this phone.
I'll buy it.
So it's unfortunate, but I guess I get it ish. I don't know. I love MagSafe. I mean, if I go back to Android and the phone doesn't have MagSafe, I won't buy it personally. And then at the very end, so that's everything to do with the phones. They are available to pre-order right now. They go in stores, I believe, this Friday. I think, if I'm remembering correctly, but sometime this week, I believe. Anyways, but then at the very end of the thing, they teased what they're calling the Galaxy Ring.
Oh boy!
And it's a wearable, like a ring that goes on your finger, some sort of smart ring. But they gave absolutely no details about this. They put a picture up on the display, said, "Oh, here, look at the Galaxy Ring," and then they were done. What? They didn't give any sort of date. They didn't give any sort of, what it's going to do. They didn't say anything other than it's called the Galaxy Ring and showed a kind of picture of it up on the display or on their screen. So, okay.
Wow.
I guess we have that to look forward to. sometime in the future. Again, don't know when. Maybe this will be the next Bixby speaker, because they announced that a while ago, and that's probably not coming anymore.
Nope.
Because nobody wants Bixby, which is understandable. All right. So that was, like I said, that was Samsung's Unpacked event for January, because all of their events are unpacked. So
yeah.
I still think they need to change their August event to be Unfold, because it's the fold.
Seriously. It's about folding phones, Samsung. Come on. Your marketing department is asleep on the job.
I mean, I think they got fired after, the first Unpacked. Oh, that's a great name. Okay, you're all done. Oh, we
That's
need
it.
a new
Yeah,
name.
it's like, nope, you're never going to top this. So just go. Perfect. All right. So Samsung had new phones. Landon, did anybody else happen to announce any new phones over the past couple of weeks?
Well, I mean, there was CES, and, there's always phones at that event.
That did happen.
But I wasn't on last week's episode, so I can't talk about any of those. No, just kidding. The only phone that I really care to talk about from CES, and technically I don't think it was announced at CES, it just was there, and everyone...
It was there. Yeah, it was announced just before CES, but they had it at their booth at CES, and yeah.
So, listener, because we haven't said it yet, you probably don't know what we're talking about. This is the Asus ROG Phone 8 Pro. Well, I believe there is just a regular 8 as well, but the one that really matters is the 8 Pro, because
nobody was talking about it.
Yeah. So, as you know, if you've listened to this podcast before, we've been relatively decent fans of the ROG phones in the past. Hardware is really nice. The aesthetics are definitely gaming type phones, which, I mean, it's not necessarily my favorite, but they do look kind of cool. They've got all the features that a gamer would want in some sort of phone product like this. This one is very much toned down when it comes to the aesthetics, the gaming side of things, which is really an interesting play. It's kind of like, if you look at this phone compared to previous generations of ROG phones, this one screams, okay, we want to go mainstream. Which is interesting, because they have the Asus Zenfone, which, I mean, to be fair, that phone, it comes in one size and it's small. It's a Caleb size phone. It's, it's what he wants. Awesome. And I mean, it obviously sells and is popular because they've been doing it for a few years now. This is the phone for everyone that wants the bigger phone.
Pretty much.
But I actually really like the look of this phone. It's just a matte black finish. It does have one like little stripe type cut looking thing across the back that's more of a glossy type finish. That's your gamer aesthetic right there. And it does actually have, if you just look at it, you wouldn't see this, but it does have a secondary display on the back of the phone like previous generations. But like I said, if you're just looking at a picture, even if you're looking at the phone itself, like you're holding it in your hand, you're looking at the back, you won't see the screen until you turn it on. It's a dot matrix type screen, and it's actually probably my favorite one that they've done so far.
It is. No, it's cool. I like that implementation a lot. It feels sort of like sort of a useful gimmick in the same way that like the symbol lights on the back of the Nothing phones are. Yeah. But like it can display text.
Yeah, it's more useful
and
than
it's
the
customizable. It's more usable. So it kind of feels like a gimmick, but like a really good gimmick. I like it.
It's a really cool gimmick. Like you can have it display the charge status if you get notifications. You can put your own text there, like Caleb said, or like I've even seen some people put images like ish kind of like you can. Yeah, it like I said, it's dot matrix, so it's not like super high quality. Like the pixel ratio is not very high by any means.
No, it's really chunky. It's black and white, but you could put like some pixel art and stuff on the back. It would look pretty cool.
It's really cool. I really like it. The other part of this phone that is the mainstreamification of the ROG phone is it is thinner now than previous generations, which is fine. I always prefer the bigger battery over thinness because phones, even when they're on the quote unquote thick side for a phone, are still ridiculously thin. So my preference is the bigger battery, but whatever. So let's get into the specs talking about that. So this has the Qualcomm Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 processor, which, as far as I know, they're not, fully taking advantage of the AI stuff on this one like Samsung is, but that's whatever. It is what it is. RAM, it's got 16 gigs or 24 gigs of RAM. Again, This is the ROG phone. The specs are up there. It starts at 512 megabytes of storage up to a terabyte. The battery on this is a 5,500 milliamp hour battery. Now that's where the thinness comes into play because it's not the 6,000 milliamp hour that it used to be. So they cut that back.
Huge,
still
but not
one of the bigger batteries
huge.
you can buy. But yes, it's not as big. But from what I understand, they've made it so it still lasts almost as long, if not as long, as previous generations by the chip is more efficient and different things like that. So that's nice. It does have 2 USB-C ports like previously because it's got one on the bottom that when you're just using it as a phone you can charge, or one on the side for when you're gaming you can plug it in and it doesn't get in the way of your hands, which, okay.
Yep.
That's nice.
Which is good.
Yes. It also does still have the trigger mechanism on the side, the air.
Yeah. Air
so
triggers.
That's nice. That are also programmable for different games or whatever you want to do with them.
Mm-hmm.
Camera-wise, the front camera is a 32 megapixel camera. On the back, it's got a 50 megapixel main sensor and a 13 megapixel. This is saying freeform 2.2 freeform camera. I don't know exactly what that is. Basically a wide angle camera, I think. And then a 32 megapixel telephoto. It does have 65 watt wired charging. And I believe this one, yes, it does have wireless charging. This is the first ROG phone with wireless charging. So that's nice. Now, the wireless charging coil is a little bit higher than most phones. So if you're putting this on, like if you have a wireless charging stand, it may not work quite right. Like somebody put this on the Pixel stand, and if you're standing it up like you would, it didn't charge. But if you put it on its side, then it did charge.
Yeah.
So if you're going to get this phone and you're wanting to use the wireless charging and you already have a wireless charging stand, it may not, just keep that in mind. It may not work. If you have a charging pad, it'll still work. You just have to make sure you place it in the right spot. So just keep that in mind if you buy this phone.
And it's not the center of the back because of the dot matrix display that they put on there.
Exactly.
Which has always been their argument for not putting wireless charging into the ROG phones, is that, well, we've got a display on the back of the phone. We can't. But they made it work. That's good.
Yep, I do like that. It is IP68 water and dust resistance, which I also believe is a first for this phone. The previous generations was IP54, which was okay.
Not as good.
but not nearly as good as IP68. So that is nice. It has a 6.7-inch display that is 2400 by 1080. So it's not the highest resolution display, but it's good enough for most people.
And the refresh rate is like exceptionally high. What is it, like 160 or something like that?
Yes, I do believe it goes up to 160 hertz, and I believe you have to set it to that. I don't think it's a It's not
not like
changing.
LTPO that's dynamic. Yeah, it's you set it and you go, but it's a gamer phone. Just set it at the highest one and screw the battery.
Yes, exactly. It does have a headphone jack because, again, gaming phone.
Yeah.
So that is nice. But yeah, I mean, it's a pretty cool phone. Now, the biggest downside to most of the ROG phones in the past has been the camera has been pretty lackluster, especially for the price. And this one is not that much different because the starting price on this thing is $1,200. So it's not cheap by any means, especially when you compare their other phone, the Zenfone 10, that starts at $500, and you're getting a really good phone for that price. This one, I mean, you have all the specs on this phone. I'll give you that. But $1,200 and the camera is similar. Like, you could compare it closer to a $500 camera. That's unfortunate, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But they are better than previous ROG phones. They did at least update the sensors a little bit and kind of focus. Again, that's the mainstreamification of the ROG phone, is trying to get a better camera sensor in it to give better photos. And it is better. It's just not anywhere near up to par of what you would expect from a $1,200 phone.
No. Nope. So it is still a gaming phone at its heart, but it's a little bit less obviously a little bit less obnoxiously gaming phone.
Yeah. So that is the Asus ROG Phone 8 Pro. Man, so many words.
It's a lot. It is a lot. Man, them and Nvidia, they're really, like, they're out for it. Worst name of the year already.
I mean, I don't hate the name. It's just there's all the words.
Just stacking too many suffixes and things into it.
I mean, at least they've, they're perfectly fine with saying ROG instead of Republic of Gaming, because that would just be
That's
awful.
true.
If you had to say that every time, ugh.
Thank heavens, like, abbreviating things is gamer aesthetic. Otherwise, yeah, we would have a problem with ROG.
Yeah. I mean, that just makes me think, do all the Sony headphones, are those just abbreviations of something?
Oh,
I don't think so, but I hope.
I'm not giving them a pass, even if they are.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, there you go. That's the phones. I do have some Apple news this week. It's thrilling, listener. And given that this is a podcast for the average consumer to keep you up to date on the main things that are happening in the tech space, I am positive that this is going to apply to at least one of you. Vision Pro. The Apple Vision Pro has officially opened up for pre-orders. And if, as of you listening to this podcast, they may very well have sold through their entire first manufacturing run of this headset. Sales are already pushing out well over a month as of the last time I checked, which was actually like a day and a half ago. So
I did see that it didn't fully sell out within 24 hours, which doesn't completely surprise me, but it makes me think they actually made more than I thought they would have.
It's so the indications were that they were going to start with an initial manufacturing run of about 80,000 units, and that they were planning for a second run of about that same number. And people were speculating that so within 24 hours, it was like pre-orders had pushed out about 3 weeks for delivery or something like that. And people were theorizing that if it breaks a month, that's probably the first run. Is 80,000 units. They sell through that. That's what they're committing to deliver within the first month of the thing being available. And that then you'll see like a jump from like 1 month availability to like 3 months, because they have to have 3 months to manufacture the next 80,000 units. So Apple's playing it kind of conservatively. Makes sense. It's a $3,500 VR headset.
Yeah.
Like, I want to be crystal clear with you, listener. Apple didn't reinvent Jack here, okay? They made an extremely high-tech, very, very nice VR headset, okay? They're sending out notes to all of their employees in their stores and everywhere, their support hotlines and everything. Do not refer to this thing as AR or VR or the headset or anything like that. It's a part of the app review guidelines for if you want to put an app in the Vision Pro App Store, you have to follow their guidelines. You can't call it a headset. You can't call it VR. You can't call it augmented reality or mixed reality. Nothing. None of those words are allowed. It is a spatial computer, and it does spatial computing. That's what Apple says. They are trying so hard to push the rhetoric that this is something new and different. And listener, don't buy it for a second. It is a very high-end, very advanced piece of technology, but it's a VR headset. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Virtual reality, you can call it mixed reality if you want, because it does have very nice outward-facing cameras that allow you to see the world around you while you are wearing it in a fairly accurate representation, but it's still opaque. If it's turned off and you put it over your eyes, it's black. You don't see through this thing. It is not a true mixed reality headset, but they spend a lot of money on their cameras. They introduced a whole new line of processors just for those cameras so that there's zero latency between the image the cameras are picking up and what gets displayed to your eyes. I'll call it mixed reality, best case scenario, but it's still just a fancy Oculus. All right? That's what it is.
Yeah,
So
pretty much.
That's my soapbox on that particular point. I have nothing to actually say about the device itself, other than it's a VR headset that looks very, very fancy. And once the thing is actually into independent reviewers' hands, not the heavily, heavily curated reviews that Apple has allowed thus far, if you see somebody on YouTube, on like a tech website, anybody writing about their hands-on experience with the Vision Pro, you need to understand that they were in a room surrounded by Apple's goons, some of which may very well have had guns to their head when they wrote those reviews. Oh man.
Well, I mean, to be fair, the ones that I've seen, I've only listened to or read a couple, but they weren't, I won't say they were negative by any means, but they also weren't like super glowing hands-on reviews of this product.
It's incredibly difficult to have a super glowing review about a $3,500 piece of consumer electronics that doesn't seem to actually have any clear use cases.
Yeah.
So, like, it's not actually making anybody's life better or easier, and it costs a lot of money for not doing that. So there's no positive spin to put on that. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So that is good. But yeah, the reviews that have all been available to this point were people that were in they had an Apple team deliver the headset to them and then stand there and watch them and guide them while they used it, and then they packed the thing up and took it away. None of the reviewers have actually had time to themselves with this device at all. The only people that have had that are developers, and they all signed an absolutely airtight NDA so that they're not allowed to talk about their experience with the headset at all.
Yeah.
So
they're not even allowed to say they have it.
Exactly. Yep. So we're going to need to wait for independent reviewers to actually get their hands on the thing, and then, and then we'll know more about it. But pre-orders have gone out, and anybody that was going to order one for those independent reviews has probably done so. I know for a fact, based on social posts on YouTube and one on I guess it was a repost from Mastodon of all places. I believe Quinn Nelson of Snazzy Labs has ordered one, and Linus Tech Tips, they've ordered one as well. So I also expect that, there's going to be a few other players in the space that will see those from fairly quick out the gate.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the Vision Pro.
My two favorite things that I've heard from multiple people that have had these like more than one hands-on event, basically, like there was, when they first announced it, everyone there, well, not everyone, but a lot of people there got a hands-on experience with it.
Yeah.
Some people have gotten another hands-on experience with it to get a little more in depth.
Yes.
My two favorite things that I've heard from multiple people that had at least one of these hands-on experiences with is it's heavy. Like the initial hands-on at the event, they only used the one strap that goes just around the back of the device. And so people are like, well, maybe the one that goes over the head a little bit will lighten it up. Nope, that didn't happen because people that have had the second experience got to use that head strap. It was still super heavy, and they're like, I don't want to, unless I'm like on a plane or somewhere I can prop my head up, I don't want to have this on my face for more than an hour or even 30 minutes because it's so freaking heavy. And the other thing is they were never allowed, and actually not threatened, but they were definitely very much encouraged to not take photos of when you're looking through it and seeing stuff around and it shows your quote unquote eyes. You were not allowed to. You could take photos of everything else, but when you're using that feature, you cannot take a picture of that because everyone has said it's the dumbest looking thing they've ever seen. And that makes sense.
Look, I'm sorry. Apple couldn't make good-looking promotional photos of that feature.
No.
I don't know why anybody on their engineering team thought, like, somebody prototyped that and looked at it and thought, yeah, we can make this work. And I'm sorry, fire that guy. I don't, like, holy crap. No.
Yeah.
No. It's going to be fun when this thing actually hits shelves and consumers, like, the tiny pool of people that have actually bought things start talking about it. I am thrilled to see like the Macrumors forums explode with that. Just because there's going to be the eternal Apple apologists who are all like, they're just pushing the boundaries of what's possible. And then there's going to be like everybody else who's not disconnected from reality, who's going to be like, yeah, but Meta Quest 3, like, I'm sorry. Costs way less, does basically all of the same stuff. The only difference is it isn't running Mac OS, I suppose. And yeah, it does share all of your data with Facebook, which isn't great. But from a hardware standpoint, I really don't think it's that much worse than the Vision Pro. And the Vision Pro, it just includes a bunch of boneheaded, stupid features that nobody wants. Like, the eye thing. Oh my gosh, no. Nobody was asking for that, Apple.
No,
this is a terrible idea.
If you were to focus group people that watch other people using a headset, I don't think the number one thing that they're going to say is, I want to see their eyes.
No, it's not. Especially since it's like, I'm not actually seeing their eyes. I want to see a projection of their eyes from a tiny camera that's that's fish-eyeing their lenses, or their eyes in front of the lenses, using only the light that is present from the actual lenses. And then I want that image that it's capturing to be like algorithmically restructured so that it fits kind of the scale of the front of their face. And then I want that run through a ridiculous optic layer to make it look like it's offset back from the front of the device by like an inch and a half, so that it's the most uncanny valley thing that I think I have ever seen. And it's a real life human being.
Yeah.
CGI does better humans than these people wearing the Vision Pro. See, I don't know. The Vision Pro is a very high-tech device. In a lot of ways, absolutely the best VR headset that money can buy. But is it worth? What does the Meta Quest 3 cost? It's like $600, $500?
I think it's only $400.
Something like 400? Yeah, it's in that ballpark. And this thing is not like 5 times better than that at all. It's like maybe 20% better, 25% better, which is fine. And if they were asking $1,000 for it, we'd all be like, oh, that darn Apple tax. But $3,500 is insane.
Okay, the Meta Quest 3 starts at $500, which
starts at $500.
Still, I mean, it's more expensive, but it's a giant leap forward from the Meta Quest 2.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
It's basically the Meta Quest Pro, but actually
but cheaper.
A little bit nicer and cheaper.
Yeah. No, wow. So yeah, I can't wait. I can't wait for these things to get delivered. It's going to be so much fun to cover Apple for that first little bit after that happens.
Absolutely.
Also, okay, another fun thing that happened to Apple this week. in their ongoing legal battle with Miasmo, which is a company that owns a bunch of patents, well, they actually make watches that do blood oxygen monitoring. They also own a bunch of patents for watches that do blood oxygen monitoring, and they're accusing Apple of having violated a crap ton of their patents with the Apple Watch Series 9 and Ultra 2 blood oxygen monitoring feature. A court held that, like they found in favor of Miasmo. They had an initial injunction to ban the sale of the Apple Watch in the United States while the legal dispute was ongoing. The judge found sufficient evidence to support that ban. Apple appealed the ban, which the ban got called off while the appeal was being decided. But during the appeal, the judge still found with Miasmo and reinstated the ban. And so the Series 9 and Ultra 2 sale has been banned in the United States twice. And the second time, in order to get around it, Apple didn't have legal recourse. And so they have just straight up disabled the feature at the firmware level in all Series 9 and Ultra 2 watches being sold in the United States right now. Yeah. If you had previously bought one, the feature will continue to work. But according to the CEO of Miasmo, the company, they think that Apple's customers are better off without the feature because it's so inaccurate. He basically threw down on social media and was all like, listen, not only did they violate our patents, they didn't do a very good job of it. Their devices are so inaccurate that you may as well not use them. You'd be better off just not even knowing. And you have to, you should be buying an actual dedicated device for this. And hey, by the way, my company makes them. Buy some. So yeah, that's a fun thing that's happening right now. We mentioned vaguely the fact that blood oxygen monitoring was a thing when we talked about the Series 9 and the Ultra 2 launching last year, and it's gone. So,
it's interesting because if the CEO is saying that, what's funny is Apple's using the same technology. So is he saying that his stuff isn't accurate either? Because
it does seem like a really tenuous position to have. I think the point he was trying to make is that they're violating our patents for the methodologies they're using, but they're not implementing them properly, right? So basically the Apple Watch doesn't actually have the technological capability to accurately read blood oxygen using the methods that they are using, and their own watches that are designed for that, which incidentally cost double what a Series 9 costs, they are more technologically sophisticated than the Apple Watch. That was essentially the gist of what he was saying, but just from first blush, it does sound kind of but wait, if they stole your tech,
yeah,
and it's inaccurate, what does that say about your tech?
Yeah. It's also, I will say, what did they add blood oxygen? They added this, was it the Series 6 that was the first one that had blood oxygen? Pretty sure.
I think so.
Because, my watch has it, and it's a Series 6. And, I've tested this with, the thing that you put on your finger. Not one that at a doctor's office. I haven't compared it to that, but I've compared it to ones that you can buy that doctors recommend, because I know people that have them that use them on a regular basis because their blood oxygen needs to be checked on a regular basis. And I've compared what my watch says to what it says, and it is different, but it's not, I wouldn't go as far as to say it's so inaccurate you can't trust it. I mean, obviously you should not trust what your watch says anyways in general, but
I mean,
it's not far enough off that it's these statements from this CEO. It's okay, you're obviously doing this to make your point, and I get it, but
yes, yeah,
it's not that bad.
It's in the ballpark,
yeah,
and that's usually good enough for most people. Is it an actual medical device? No. And this company manufactures medical devices that are used in hospitals, and stuff like that. It's a very different use case. And I think one of the big standout features of Miasmo's devices is that they do constant monitoring, whereas the Apple Watch only monitors if you tell it to.
Yeah.
And it does like a timed monitor and then reports a number, and that's it.
Yeah.
And so, like, if you are at risk of, having issues with your blood oxygen level, like your lungs don't properly oxygenate your blood, and that's a thing that you need to monitor, otherwise you're going to just randomly die. You're going to want a device that monitors accurately constantly. And the Apple Watch does not do that. That is not what it does. And, if that's the point he's trying to make, is that, hey, the Apple Watch isn't a medical device that can be used in a hospital. Okay. I mean, you're not wrong, but like also nobody said it was.
Exactly.
So...
Apple actually says, do not use these for medical reasons. Like, the thing you want to use an Apple Watch or any of these smartwatches that have these features, you can use them, like, once you know how quote unquote accurate they actually are, you can use these to follow patterns. And if it goes off of that pattern, then you want to go to a doctor and get it actually checked by someone that knows what they're doing with technology that is accurate. Yes. But you don't want to use the data from your watch as an accurate representation of what's actually going on. It's just something that you can follow the patterns, and then when it's goes off that pattern a little ways or whatnot, then you can start to show some concern.
Yep. So yeah, it's a funny situation. I think it is kind of hilarious that Apple has been forced to straight up remove a feature from their watches in order to keep selling them at all. And also, I think it's hilarious that this guy is like, he's really enjoying his time in the spotlight. Like, nobody would have any clue who Maismo, I don't know how to pronounce the name of this company. Nobody would know who they were in the general sense of the populace at large if they weren't having this legal battle with Apple right now. Yeah. And they did manage to get this is a small victory in this particular legal battle, so good for them. But like, my guy, it's okay. You don't have to say anything right now. In fact, your lawyers would probably prefer that you didn't.
Exactly. I mean, I'm just surprised that this hasn't just come to a settlement where Apple just pays a licensing fee, because that's what's going to end up happening. Either that, or they just don't sell, like, they have to keep selling it the way it is, like without the blood oxygen feature.
No blood oxygen monitoring.
I mean, it's that's like, Apple, true. You've got the money. Just pay the licensing fee.
Pay a licensing fee. Yeah. Yep. Agreed. Well, that, listener, brings us to the end of the news that we have available. Unless Landon has one more thing.
Nope, I don't.
Okay. Well, that's it then. We've arrived at the end of the podcast. Thank you so much for joining us, listener, to catch up on this week's tech news. If you want to get in contact with us, you can do that via email at electronic mail. It's the newest thing at podcast at callingallplatforms.com. That's what it is. You can also find us on social medias at it's CapTech Pod or something like that on Twitter, and Calling All Platforms on Facebook. You can also get in contact with us on our website at callingallplatforms.com. In the comments, hit us up there if you would like to. And you can also find us right back here on the podcasting app of your choice next week. But until then, bye-bye.
See ya.
Calling All Platforms is a production of Supporter Sound Studios. To learn more about how you can support the podcast, go to www.patreon.com/callingallplatforms.